Okay, today I'm going to explain to you guys how to wholesale foreclosed properties by explaining to you the process of a foreclosure, and I'll also give you guys a few tips that are very useful when it comes to dealing with foreclosed properties and also sellers that are going through a foreclosure. Now, the first thing you have to know is the foreclosure process. And the reason why you want to know this process is that way, you can have negotiating leverage when you are negotiating with somebody who's going through a foreclosure. So the first step to a foreclosure is the notice of default. So that's when the borrower has not paid their mortgage loan or their mortgage payment for over 3 months. So after 90 days, they'll go into default. So usually the lender will send the borrower a notice of default within that 3 to 6 month time frame. Now, after that is when it varies depending on which state you are at. So there's non-judicial foreclosure states, and then there's judicial foreclosure states. All the states that I've worked in has been judicial foreclosure, and judicial foreclosure means that the courts are involved. So the courts are going through the process from the trustee's sale to, the person signing off that's new buying the property. Now, a non-judicial foreclosure is something that, you basically can get this done within 2 weeks, whereas a judicial foreclosure may take another 3 to 6 months just after the notice of default. So a non-judicial foreclosure is as simple as filing the right paperwork with the right court, and you can get that done within 2 to 4 weeks. Judicial foreclosure, which are more common, takes about 3 to 6 months. Now, after the notice of default, what's next is the foreclosure sale itself, which is called the trustee's sale, or just the auction is what it's typically referred to as. So at the auction, that is when, you can then buy the property as an investor at the auction, and they'll waive whatever mortgage is owed on it or whatever amount needs to be satisfied. That'll be the minimum bid typically, and that will be you as an investor. You'll have to pay off that minimum bid and whatever it's raised to, and then you'll be able to get the property. Now, in some states, they have a redemption period where the seller can come back and, buy the property within the certain specific time frame, maybe 30 days after the sale has taken place. Now, that's the process within itself, right? Now, how do you as an investor fit into that process? Now, the reason why it's very helpful and useful for you to know the process, for one, is because when you're speaking with the seller, you can know what kind of time frame they're working with without even have to ask them, specifically, are they going through a foreclosure, or without having to tell them that that they're going through a foreclosure. Without any of that, you'll be able to know. So an example of that, say you were going through your county leads and you saw the auction leads this month, and they have, a sale coming up at the end of this month, and a foreclosure lead is on there. You call that foreclosure lead, you tell them you're looking to buy the property. You don't feel comfortable telling them that, that their house is up for auction at the end of the month. I always say there's no need to say that. There's no need to already say, what's already understood. So with you not saying that, that you have some negotiating leverage there because they are going up for auction at the end of this month. So they are in a need to sell the property, which means they may just want to get the mortgage balance paid off, which means instead of you saying, that you're up for auction at the end of this month, you can just say, well, how much do you owe on the mortgage? And then they'll say, I owe $90,000 on the mortgage. And you'll say, okay, well, how much are you looking to walk away with after we pay off the mortgage? So then they'll be like, oh, I'm fine. If you can just pay off the mortgage, that'd be good for me. So that's good for you to know. And the reason why they'll be good with the mortgage is because they will be, satisfied with making sure that their credit is clean. So that's basically something that you need to know, just so you'll be able to get ahead of the curve when you're speaking with these with the sellers and with the owners. Now, another thing that you should know, and that'll be good to know, is, negotiating tactics. So if you have somebody that say may be in the middle of a foreclosure, they know that you're calling because a whole bunch of people are calling, and they're telling you like, hey, I'm just going to give the property back to the bank. I don't even want to deal with it anymore. So, you can tell your team to stop calling, tell everybody to stop calling. I'm giving it back to the bank. So then you can tell them, hey, John or Jane Doe, hey, the reason why we're giving you a call is because we know we can go and purchase it down at the auction if you just give it back to the bank. We know we can do that. However, we want to make sure we help you out and that, this foreclosure doesn't show on your credit score. And maybe, we can come to an agreement of price and make sure you walk away with a little bit of cash on top of the mortgage payment that you already owe. Now, the benefit for you as an investor saying this is because you want to get the property before it goes down to the auction. That way you get the property before other investors look at it, before other investors are bidding on the property. This way you're able to wholesale the property and actually get your fee from it. So, imagine a whole bunch of investors seeing this property is on the upcoming auction, at the end of the month. But now you, as a savvy investor, as a great, communicator, you're able to convince the seller, not even convince, basically show them why they needed you to buy the property from them instead of them letting it go down to the auction and messing up their credit score. You're able to buy it from them, maybe give them $1,000 to $2,000, $5,000, and then you make, $5,000, $10,000 on top of that. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. Whereas if you don't know these things, you may just let it go down to the auction, or you might just hang up right there because they may be frustrated. So you have to know these things so they can look at you as a source of information. Maybe before they spoke to you, they weren't aware that all the options that they had. They just thought they had to let the property go up for auction and to go up for sale. They didn't know they had the option of you purchasing it and eliminating the credit strikes or whatever, So that being said, guys, that's why it's important to know it. Now that you know it, it's about, implementing it. And the best way to implement it is to also, once the property sells at the auction, you will be able to tell these, go back to the actual homeowner and tell them, I can buy your property from the auction. I can buy your property. You still can sell your property. Excuse me. You still can sell your property. Right now, it did sell at the auction, but you still can sell it because you may be facing, again, credit score, right? So you want to just throw the pros and cons, what may be good for them, what may be good or bad for them. You want to put that in there. That way they know, right? That way they know exactly what they can get out of the situation with working with you specifically. Now, one thing that may come up, and I'm sure you probably heard of it as well, is this, being able to, the funds, the surplus funds, right? How the surplus funds work. Now, the surplus funds is a real thing. If the property sells over the auction amount, then the actual buyer, the owner, they will receive the whatever balance, whatever the difference is between the minimum bid and what it's sold for. So that is something that can happen. Maybe you will encounter somebody who said they'll wait so they can get the money back. I actually have never encountered that, but that is a legit thing. But one thing that I will say to kind of, combat that, I feel like, something you could say if you ever came across it, if I ever came across it, probably would say something like, that's all up for grabs and you don't know how much the property will sell for. So would you rather risk it or have something that's certain with us being able to close the property out, take care of your closing costs, and make sure that you walk away with cash and have no, negative remarks on your credit. So basically what you're preaching is certainty, and that is, that is an illusion. That's, if, should've, would've, could've. We don't know if that'll happen, but what you're, offering is 100% certain. So that's all mortgage foreclosure. And I'll cover delinquent tax foreclosure really fast. Now, the only difference between a delinquent tax foreclosure and a mortgage foreclosure is that the delinquent tax foreclosure is dealt specifically with the county itself. So, meaning that, the county taxes is what you're paying. So not the lender fees or any lender, any lender costs. It's not a third party there. It's all strictly with the county. So that process, typically the way it works, depending on what state you're in, it's, if you're a tax D state at the actual county, you'll be able to, buy the property. But usually counties that have a tax D state, they also have what's called a delinquent, a current unpaid accounts. So unpaid accounts, current unpaid accounts are delinquent taxes. It'll show a list of all the property owners in the entire county. And I actually did one for Hamilton County. You can take a look at that. I'll put that link in the description or up there, but you can take a look at that. And that is for every county. They typically have this list. So you'll be able to contact these people who are going behind on their foreclosure or on their house, which typically if you are behind 2 years or 4 semesters, that's when you'll be up or be eligible to have the property auctioned off if you're behind 2 years. So the way that you would, calculate that as an investor. If you see that the property taxes are, say, $500 per semester, then if there's somebody who's $2,000 behind in taxes, that means that they're 4 semesters behind, which means that they're 2 years behind, which means that in the next year, they can most likely be up for a county auction sale, which means that you as an investor, you can go in and offer them a price, offer them, asking price, offer them a specific amount that'll pay the taxes off, and also you'll be able to, walk away with the deed, and they'll be able to walk away with money. And one thing you guys should know, and this will be it. One thing you guys should know, you usually with the mortgage company, they pay the taxes because they want to protect their investment. So usually the mortgage balance, however much they pay each month for the mortgage, includes the property taxes. So you won't typically find a property that has delinquent taxes that also has a mortgage. Not typical, but what you will typically more commonly find is somebody that has delinquent taxes and they also have a tax lien on the property. So that's why it's always important to get that title search done and do not count your eggs until they hatch. As always, keep your heart in each step because you're already a success. Get to stepping.